Okay, so far we have been working on what's called wet onto dry paper. So today I've got 4 little sections here for you, and we're going to work on wet into wet and see what happens, just to get used to it. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get some water on my brush, and clean water, just wet the page, wet this section. Okay, wash it off, dry it off, and get some paint, any colour. Blue is still wet here from yesterday, and just drop it in. Wash off the brush, get a bit more. Now, so the more water you have in your colour, the more liquid it is. You see the way, because the page is on a slight tilt here. Oops, put that in the wrong place, never mind. Go with that. So I've put the cadmium yellow red in where the cadmium red yellow, where the crimson red should be. But that doesn't matter. Now, I'm going to tilt it back a bit that way. And just let it run. That's gone dry there already. I have here, can you see that? A little water bottle to re-wet my page. Now, this is where the very neat and tidy among you might get a little bit freaked out, because it's messy, but it's fun. See the way it runs? Because it's running down the page, and then we can push it up this way a bit, tilt it that way, let it run that way, tilt it that way, and it will run that way, and back that way. I'm going to put a little bit more of the red into it. Maybe a strong strip of red there. See what happens. All right. Wash off the brush. Get some clean water. Get some of the blue. And that's very wet. Just a little bit of the blue with less water in it. So the more water you have, the more it runs. So when you're working wet into wet, you could start off with a very wet page, and it will bleed, and the colour will get paler. As it dries, the colour gets stronger. Can you see the darker bits there? The colour is stronger. It's not running as much. Think of Turner. Look up Turner, and you can imagine him out on a boat, playing with water, strapped to the mast of a boat, and catching the elements. The only thing you do have to be careful about when you do this, and I'll do it in the next one just to show you, it dries lighter than it looks when it's wet. That's one thing to remember. I'm going to wash off my brush. Now, also, if there's something happening that you don't like, get your tissue and just dab it while it's wet. It'll run back in because the page is still quite wet. So we have a nice little kind of landscape. Can you see that? Okay, so that's one. Now, something else I'm going to introduce you to is a thing called Art Masking Fluid. Here I have the Daler Rowney version. You get, lots of companies make them. You can even get a coloured one, which can be quite useful if you're not used to using it. I've done a little drawing here of some flowers. Can you see them? Okay, so I'm going to cover them with the masking fluid. What the masking fluid does is it stops the paint going on the page. Now, the thing that I'm going to do here is I have some washing up liquid. And I've got an old brush, right? Very important, an old brush, because it's never going to be any good for painting anymore. I'm going to put a little bit of the washing up liquid on it. Not too much, just a little bit. I'm going to put some of the water into that, actually. Okay, so then I'm going to dip it in the masking fluid. Now, if you don't put the lid back on your masking fluid properly, you're going to end up with a lumpy thing on the top of it when you open it. So all you need to do is just take that off. Masking fluid is liquid latex, liquid rubber. So when it dries, it stinks, by the way. When it dries, we can paint, and it means that we can put a wash over the area where we're painting. So we don't have to go in between the lines into the negative spaces, which I will talk to you about later on when we're doing other exercises. Now I'm trying to leave little gaps there. So they're kind of, I don't know what kind of flowers they are. Let's pretend, right, that they are dog roses, that's the word. Yeah, dog roses, right? So, and my little stems. Now you can buy a little implement that actually was originally used for map writing, which grasps. You can make thin lines with. I've lost mine. So if I find it before the end of this course, I'll show you how to use it. It grabs the paint and you can use it thick or thin. Or it grabs the masking fluid, which is easier to do. So I'm just going to put a few little dots of it. I like throwing things at the page, I mean. I don't mean at people. All right, so that is going to be left there until it dries. Now, you can see here where this one has crept down quite a lot, hasn't it? So, watercolours do things when you're not looking at them. The paper that I'm using here actually is a smooth paper. It's a knot. It's a hot pressed knot. It's a lovely paper. I like working with a flat paper, a smooth paper, but not everybody does. It can be a little bit difficult, but anyway, not to worry. So the next thing that I'm going to do with you is just little washes of colour. So there's orange there. I'm just using what's here already. There's orange there. We have yellow there. And we have blue here. Okay, so let's see what happens when I just lay down a wash of yellow on a dry page. It's not sticking terribly well. I must have handled the paper. So clean the brush. Put in that. Now it's running down, and you can see the areas there where the paint hasn't taken. That says to me that my little paws have been on that section of the page. It's also still very wet, so I'm just going to let it. These kind of exercises really are heading towards working for landscapes. But it's all about paint handling. So we just let it run into it there. and see what we get. We should get a bit of green at the bottom here. If not, we can go back. We can either wash it all off. I like the way there's a bit of a moon appearing there. If you purposely want to take out an area, see where the moon is appearing there. If you purposely want to take that out, if you want to kind of accentuate it, I'm just going to put this up on the masking tape there because I flattened my board since. So you probably going to, okay, got a piece of tissue and I put it into a round and I'm going to press it down here and it will take even more of it out. Right, and I might take a little bit of it out there because the sun is reflecting on the sea. Now, where's the brush gone? Here we are, here's my brush. Okay, so for the last little one in here, I'm going to put a deep colour in and show you how to get your lights, how to leave white, how to get white on the page. Okay, so we're going to, you want nice strong colour to lift things out of the page, to lift the paint off. Just put my pencil there and that brush up there. So I'm mixing up lots of pigment into the paint, into it, so it's not pale. You can see, I want it even stronger than that. I don't want it wishy-washy. Takes a bit of time to mix it up. When you're mixing, take your time. You know, there's no real hurry. We're not really in a hurry, are we? I'm not. So, wash my brush very carefully. Dry it off there. Get clean water. And I'm going to mix up the crimson red. Nice and strong. Put a good bit of it in. Good dollop in. So you want it kind of the consistency of cream rather than milk. If you can think about the difference. But you still want enough paint to be dripping off your brush. Right? So this is wet into wet, this is wet on dry, and this one here we're going to do a large, well, graded wash. Now, so here's something. Red, start with red, got to work quickly, move into blue, this might be a bit wet still, and it will mix on the page. But the page itself is dry, remember that? The page is dry. And don't want lines. Okay, so we have our little wash there. Now, if you notice, I've committed a major sin there. Just to remind me to tell you, never to do it. Never, and I mean never. And there's very few things I say never about, but never leave your watercolor brush in water for any length of time, because you'll end up with a beautifully bent brush. And you know, this particular brush here, I've changed brushes by the way, which is the number 8 from, I don't think it's mongoose, it's some kind of animal from Cork Art Supplies, and it's about €20, and that's one of the cheapest brushes of this kind that you'll get. So you need to look after them. Now, oh, I think I want to make some white, leave some white marks on that page, but it's covered. So I can get my dry brush while it's wet and lift out sections. I think I'll make a boat. Very basic little boat. even get... Now it will creep back in, so you have to keep doing it. But eventually, you don't get very hard lines when you do this, which is nice. With the masking fluid here, it's going to be similar, but there will be hard lines, and you'll see what I mean when it's done. So I have to keep going here until it stops bleeding back in. I'm actually going to get a completely dry brush and do it. So it's kind of like, what do you call it? A ghost boat. Can you see? Right. Okay, so they're nearly all dry, and my masking fluid is dry. So I'm going to paint over that. What am I going to paint over it with? I think I'll start with the blue at the top, because I'm pretending it's a sky of some sort. I'm going to keep it quite strong, not be afraid of it. Now, I want to get it quite strong, because I'm going to do something also with this. Wash the brush off. Get clean water. Just get some yellow. Okay, so put that down there. Let it run back up a little bit. Now, okay, I'm actually going to lean it there. Can you see that? Maybe not. I'll push this up here, this way. All right, that's better. Okay, wash the brush. And now, I can't take the masking fluid off until the paint is dry. And I'm going to actually, while the paint is wet, I can still add more to it, because I want to make it stronger, and I can get rid of any lines by working it very, very wet. See? And my green's running down nicely. So what I'm going to get next, with my brush there, is salt, coarse sea salt. Okay, and you don't need to use a lot of this, and it's the best. You can use ordinary salt, but this really is the best. Just drop it here and there for texture. It's better in areas where the paint is dark. What it does is it soaks up the pigment. Okay, a few more bits. Right, that'll do. So that has to all dry before I can do anything else to it.